It's funny how life has this way of sneaking up on us. One minute you're chasing toddlers around the house, building a career, planning vacations, managing bills, and wondering if you'll ever get a good night's sleep again. Then, before you know it, the house gets quiet. The days slow down a little. And suddenly, you're standing in front of the mirror thinking, how did I get here so fast? But here's the thing, they never really tell you what it's like after 60. Sure, there's talk about retirement plans, downsizing, maybe traveling a bit more. But no one really sits you down and says, hey, there are going to be some new challenges, not just with your body, but with your mind. And some of those challenges might just steal the joy right out from under you if you're not careful. I want to talk with you about that today. Not in a lecture, not with a list of shoulds and shouldn'ts, but like we're having a real conversation. You and me, maybe over a warm cup of tea. Let's get real about what happens up here, in the mind, after 60. Because the truth is, sometimes the hardest battles aren't about physical aches or getting up from a low chair. They're the quiet ones that happen in the space between your ears. There are these subtle, sneaky little thought patterns, mental traps, really, that can take root before we even notice. And if we're not mindful, they can chip away at our happiness, our confidence, and our peace. They don't show up all at once. They drift in slowly. And they feel so familiar, so reasonable that we don't always question them. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a day where everything seemed fine on the outside, but inside there was this heaviness? Like something was just off. Maybe you started thinking about all the things you used to do that you can't do anymore. Or all the people who aren't around like they used to be. Or maybe it was just this quiet whisper of, what now? You're not alone. That's one of the most common emotional undercurrents people feel after 60. And what makes it tricky is that no one really talks about it in depth. But we're going to, right here, right now. So let's begin with one of the biggest joy stealers of all, the belief that my best days are behind me. Now, I get why that thought might come up. You might look back at your 30s or 40s when you were busy, needed, constantly doing something for someone and think that was my purpose. That was my prime. But I want to challenge that today. Because what if that idea, this deeply rooted belief that your golden years are just for reminiscing, what if that's a lie? Think about a garden. The early part of life, that's when we're doing all the planting. Building careers, raising kids, starting things from scratch. It's a lot of hustle and noise. But the harvest, the real beauty, comes later. That's when things ripen. When you get to taste the fruit of all you've poured in. When wisdom meets peace. When you finally have space to breathe, reflect, and enjoy. But here's the trick. If your mind is stuck facing backward, staring longingly at the garden you used to tend, you might miss the incredible things blooming right now. The trap here is in how we define value. Our culture loves youth. Fast-paced, shiny, and new. But value isn't about speed or novelty. It's about depth. It's about meaning. It's about legacy. And nobody does those better than someone who's lived, loved, and learned through decades of real life. So when your mind starts whispering, it's too late, I want you to pause. Just for a moment. Ask yourself, too late for what exactly? Too late to laugh? To start a project you've always dreamed of? To make a new friend? To become the healthiest you've ever been? To discover something about yourself you never had time to explore before? No, it's not too late. It's only too late if you've already decided to stop showing up. And that brings me to another quiet little mental trap, comparison. Well, this one's sneaky. You might not even realize it's happening. But suddenly you're looking at others your age and thinking, why do they seem so happy? So active? So fulfilled? Why do they still have their partner, or better health, or a more exciting life? The comparison game is a thief dressed as curiosity. It starts out looking like a harmless glance at someone else's path, but before you know it, it's made you feel like you're falling behind. Like your own story isn't measuring up. But here's what I've learned from talking to so many amazing people over 60. No two journeys look the same. Some folks are climbing mountains in their 70s. Others are finally finding peace by learning to slow down. Some are surrounded by big families every weekend. Others are creating new communities after loss or change. And all of them are valid. Beautiful even. So let me gently say this. Your joy doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It doesn't need to match a magazine cover or a retirement brochure. It only needs to feel true to you. And you get to define what that is. If any of this is resonating with you, if you're nodding along or feeling like finally someone gets it, I'd be so grateful if you gave this video a little like, or shared it with someone who might need to hear it too. Sometimes just knowing we're not alone is the beginning of breaking free from these mental traps. Because that's really what this is about. Freedom. Not the kind of freedom you get from a vacation or retirement plan, but the kind that lives inside you. The kind that shows up when your mind is no longer your own worst critic. And you deserve that kind of freedom. You've earned it. Let's keep this conversation going, because there's more to talk about. More light to shine into those quiet corners. And I've got a few more thoughts I think you're really going to connect with. It's amazing how just naming a thought out loud, like, maybe my best days aren't behind me, can crack something open inside. It's like a window suddenly letting in fresh air after being stuck shut for years. And once that breeze starts blowing, you begin to notice the dust that's been gathering on certain beliefs. Not because you weren't strong or wise, but because life just has a way of piling on quietly until one day, you realize something's been weighing you down without your permission. Let's keep exploring that, because another mental trap that sneaks in, especially after 60, is self-doubt. Now this one doesn't always shout. Sometimes it tiptoes. You start to question your choices more. You second-guess yourself. You hesitate to try new things because a part of you whispers, "What if I mess up?" Or, "I'm too old to start now." I want to tell you a little story here about my friend Mary. She's 72. Fierce as ever, quick with a laugh, always the first one to make a stranger feel welcome. But a few years back, she told me something that stopped me in my tracks. She said, "I feel invisible sometimes. Like the world stopped seeing me when my hair turned white." That hit me. Because I've heard it more than once. And it's not just about being seen by others, it's about being seen by ourselves. Mary realized she had slowly started holding herself back. She loved painting in her 30s but hadn't touched a brush in decades. "Who would care?" she'd say. "What's the point now?" But guess what she did? She went out and bought a set of watercolors. Cheap ones from the corner store. She started painting again. Not for Instagram. Not for a gallery. Just for herself. And when she showed me that first painting, a tiny bluebird perched on a tree branch, I swear she glowed. It wasn't about the painting. It was about the act of choosing herself again. Of saying, "I still matter. My voice still counts. My creativity is still alive." And that's what self-doubt tries to rob us of. The belief that we can still grow, still create, still offer something beautiful to the world, or even just to ourselves. You see, doubt will try to convince you that it's too risky to try something new at this stage of life. That mistakes are more embarrassing. That people won't take you seriously. But let me ask you this. Haven't you already lived through enough ups and downs to know that you can survive just about anything? You've made it through grief, through setbacks, through heartbreak and reinvention. If that's not resilience, I don't know what is. So whether it's learning to dance, writing that story you've had in your heart for years, or picking up the phone to reconnect with someone you miss, don't let doubt steal those moments from you. Because confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing. And that leads me into another quiet joy stealer, regret. Oh, this one can be especially heavy. It often shows up as, "If only I had," you know the ones, "If only I'd taken that trip. If only I'd spent more time with Dad before he passed. If only I hadn't waited so long to take care of my health." We carry these little phrases like rocks in our pockets. Some days they feel light. Other days they feel like boulders. And the problem with regret is that it tricks us into believing we're powerless. That because we didn't do something then, we can't do anything now. But that's not true. Life isn't a single straight path. It's more like a winding river, full of bends and curves and little places to stop and rest. Just because a door closed doesn't mean you can't build a new one. And just because a moment passed doesn't mean all the meaning it held is gone. One of the most powerful things you can do at this stage in life is make peace with your past. That doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending everything was perfect. It means acknowledging it gently and then choosing to move forward with your hands free. And here's something I've learned from talking to so many people over the years. Sometimes the greatest joy comes not from doing something brand new, but from doing something you always loved, again. Maybe it's gardening, or singing, or spending time with animals, or volunteering, or just having deep, meaningful conversations. You don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to return to yourself. Right now, in this very moment, I want to ask you something. Is there something small and kind you can do for yourself today that reconnects you with joy? It could be something as simple as stepping outside to feel the sun on your face, or calling someone you've been thinking about, or writing a letter to the younger version of you, telling them they made it through. And if something I've said so far has stirred something in you, if a memory came up or you felt seen in any small way, I'd love it if you shared your thoughts in the comments. What has your experience been with some of these mental traps? What have you done to stay joyful and grounded? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Because this space we're building here, it's not just about information. It's about connection. And that's the true antidote to so many of the thoughts that try to weigh us down. It's easy to think we're alone in our experiences. But when we speak up, we realize we're walking this path together. Not the same way, not at the same pace, but side by side in spirit. So as we keep this conversation going, take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. And remind yourself, I am not finished becoming. I still have joy left in me. And I have the power to choose it. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? That even after all these years, after the heartbreaks and breakthroughs, the chapters we never saw coming, we can still sit down, reflect, and say, wait a minute, maybe I haven't missed my moment after all. We've already talked about the mental traps of looking backward with regret and doubting whether we still have something to offer. But there's another kind of trap, and this one often hides in plain sight. It shows up as a quiet, nagging belief that says, I'm a burden now. It might creep in when you need help lifting something heavy, or when you forget where you left your glasses, again. Or when your adult children seem busy, and you hesitate to ask for anything, afraid you'll interrupt or impose. Maybe it even comes up during doctor visits when you feel like you're being talked about more than talked to. This idea that you're somehow a weight in other people's lives? It's heartbreaking. And it's not true. But let's be honest, it can feel true sometimes, can't it? When you've spent your life being the one others depended on, it's hard to be the one who asks for help. It's hard to let go of that feeling of independence you wore like a badge of honor. You raised kids, ran households, kept people fed, safe and supported, and now life is asking you to receive. That can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. But I want you to remember something. Needing help doesn't make you a burden. It makes you human. Let that sink in for a moment. We all go through seasons. When you were younger, you gave a lot. And the people in your life? They remember that, even if they don't always say it out loud. Your presence, your wisdom, your stories, your laughter, they matter. In fact, they're often exactly what younger generations need, whether they realize it yet or not. And you know what else? There's a quiet kind of strength in allowing others to show up for you. It creates connection. It gives them a chance to give back. It teaches compassion. In fact, some of the most meaningful relationships are built not in doing big things for people, but in simply being with them through life's ordinary moments. I remember chatting with a man named Joe at a community center a while back. He was in his late 70s, retired from a long career in construction. He told me he used to dread asking his granddaughter to help with his smartphone. Felt like I was bothering her, he said, eyes downcast. But one day she stayed longer than usual. They ended up talking about music, about her dreams, about things they'd never spoken about before. She told me she liked helping me, he said. Said it made her feel close to me. that she learned more from those talks than anything she'd heard in school that week. That hit me, because Joe wasn't being a burden. He was building a bridge, just by being real, just by showing up as himself. You see, we have to stop measuring our worth by what we do and start recognizing the value in who we are. The wisdom you carry, the stories only you can tell, the calm you bring to a room, those are gifts. They don't expire with age. In fact, they become more precious. So when your mind tries to convince you that you're a weight on someone else's shoulders, gently remind it, I've carried others for a long time. It's okay to let someone carry me now and then. That doesn't make me less. It makes me loved. And now, if you've been feeling any of these mental traps in your own life, regret, doubt, comparison, or this feeling of being a burden, I want to say this gently but clearly, you're not alone. These thoughts don't make you weak. They make you human. But you don't have to let them run the show anymore. That's the beauty of this stage in life. You've got the perspective now, the experience, the emotional toolkit. You've seen enough of life to know that thoughts come and go, and you can choose which ones get to stay. And maybe that's the most powerful realization of all, that joy isn't something that happens to us. It's something we practice. We water it little by little, like a houseplant on the windowsill. And yes, some days the leaves might droop, but with care, attention, and a little light, it starts to grow again. So if you're watching this and something in your heart says, yes, this is me. This is what I've been needing to hear. I want to gently invite you to subscribe and turn on the notifications. Not because I need the numbers, but because I truly believe in building a community where we speak truth, lift each other up, and remind one another that life after 60 is still full of possibility. This isn't about chasing youth, it's about embracing wisdom. It's about letting go of what no longer serves us so we can make space for what still sparks joy, even in the simplest ways. And speaking of joy, there's still one more mental trap we haven't touched yet. One that often hides behind busyness, silence, or even a smile. But don't worry, we'll get to that soon. For now, just take a moment to sit with everything we've shared. Breathe it in. You are not a burden. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are becoming, still. And I'm so grateful to be here with you as we continue discovering what that really means. Isn't it something, how just being seen, truly seen, can start to shift the way we feel about everything? You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to wake up tomorrow with a 5-step plan for transformation. Sometimes all it takes is a soft reminder that you're still here and that being here matters. We've already talked about a few of the mental traps that sneak into our minds with age. Regret, doubt, that deep, aching feeling of being a burden. But there's one more that can be just as tricky, just as quiet, and just as powerful in its ability to steal our joy. And that's the trap of comparison. Now, I know comparison isn't new. We've all done it at some point in our lives. Maybe it was with neighbors or siblings, coworkers or friends. But something about getting older can make those comparisons sting a little more. Not because we're shallow or petty, but because we start to wonder, did I do enough? Did I make the most of my time? You might look around and see people your age traveling the world, starting second careers, running marathons, and you start to feel small. You wonder why you're not doing those things. You think, maybe I missed my chance. Maybe I'm falling behind. Let me say this as clearly and kindly as I can. There is no race. There is no deadline. There is no scoreboard. Your life is not supposed to look like anyone else's. And even the people you think have it all together, they're struggling with their own private battles too. You don't see their lonely nights. You don't hear their self-doubt. You're not living in their shoes, and they're not living in yours. Comparison steals joy because it tricks us into believing that our worth is measured by what we do or have instead of who we are. But the truth is, the most meaningful lives are often the quietest ones. The ones filled with small, sacred moments, like the first sip of coffee in the morning, or a grandchild's laughter, or that deep feeling of peace when you know you did your best even if no one else saw it. I once met a woman named Teresa at a local library event. She told me she used to scroll through social media and feel awful afterward. She'd see friends going on cruises, getting recognition, living what looked like these incredible golden years. And meanwhile, she was at home recovering from a hip surgery, trying to keep her spirits up. But then something changed. She decided to start a little journal. Each evening before bed, she wrote down one thing she did that day that brought her peace. Some days it was folding her laundry with music on. Other days it was watching the birds outside her window. Nothing flashy. Nothing for show. Just real, ordinary beauty. And here's what happened. After about 2 months, she told me, I stopped comparing because I finally saw what I already had. That's the power of presence. When we're grounded in our own story, we stop needing to borrow someone else's. So, if you've caught yourself lately looking over the fence, wondering if you're falling short, take a breath. Come back to you. Look around at what you have. The strength it's taken to get here. The love you've given. The challenges you've overcome. That's not small. That's heroic. And if there's something you've always wanted to try, but felt like it wasn't big enough or impressive enough, do it anyway. Not for comparison. Not to keep up. But because it's yours. Maybe you want to learn how to bake bread from scratch. Or learn the names of every plant in your garden. Or sit down and write a letter to someone you love. Those things might not go viral, but they will fill your soul in ways that matter far more. The truth is, joy isn't found in measuring up. It's found in showing up. For yourself. For the people you care about. For the little things that quietly make a day feel good. And let me offer you this simple idea. It's never too late to start over in small ways. Not to fix your whole life, but to shift the way you live each day. You don't need to move mountains. You just need to take one intentional step. A single moment of choosing peace over pressure. Of choosing joy over judgment. We're often told that growth is for the young. But I believe it's for anyone who's still breathing. I've seen people in their 70s start new hobbies, fall in love again, discover passions they never had time for before. I've seen people in their 80s begin walking clubs and start writing poetry for the first time. Not to impress anyone, just because they could. And if you're sitting there wondering if that could be you too, yes, it absolutely can. There is no age limit on purpose. There is no expiration date on dreams. And there is no such thing as being too old to come alive again. You've got the wisdom. You've got the experience. Now all you need is a little permission, maybe even just from yourself. So as we wrap up this part of our conversation, I want to ask you something from the heart. What's something small you could do this week that's just for you? Something that brings you joy, not because it looks impressive, but because it feels good? Write it down. Say it out loud. Tell someone about it. Let it be real. And more than anything, remember this. You don't have to compare your chapter to someone else's highlight reel. Your life is not behind. It's just different. And it's still yours to shape. Can we just take a breath together? Right here, right now, wherever you are sitting, whether it's in your cozy kitchen, on a porch swing with the breeze coming in, or nestled into your favorite chair, take a moment to feel proud of yourself. Not because you've checked off some big task today. Not because you've figured it all out. But because you've stayed open. You've listened. You've leaned into something that isn't always easy, talking about the quiet thoughts that sit at the edge of our hearts after 60. That takes courage. That takes heart. And you've got both. Over the past little while together, we've taken a gentle walk through some of the mental traps that so many of us face as we grow older. The trap of regret, whispering that it's too late. The trap of self-doubt, convincing us that we no longer matter. The painful belief that we're a burden. And the comparison game that drains the joy from our everyday moments. But now that we've seen them clearly, we can begin something even more powerful. We can let them go. Maybe not all at once. Maybe not perfectly. But piece by piece. Breath by breath. Day by day. You don't have to wrestle with your past to honor your future. You can just decide right now that your life still has meaning, still has beauty, still has joy waiting to be discovered in the smallest, most unexpected corners. You see, joy doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it shows up quietly, like a cup of tea with a friend, or a moment of stillness in the morning before anyone else is awake, or a memory that makes you smile instead of cry. Joy is not a performance. It's not reserved for the healthiest, wealthiest, or the youngest among us. Joy is yours still, even now, especially now. And if you've been feeling stuck in those old thoughts, wondering if the best has already passed you by, I want to tell you something that I hope sinks deep into your heart. You are not your thoughts. You are not the should-haves or the what-ifs. You are not the wrinkles on your face or the number on your medical chart. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are not too late. You are here, and that is enough. There's a kind of quiet power that comes with age. It's not loud or showy. It's not in the hustle. It's in the knowing. Knowing what matters. Knowing who you are. Knowing what you're no longer willing to carry. And now, as we close this chapter in our conversation, I want to leave you with a few gentle thoughts to carry forward. You have permission to forgive yourself. You have permission to let go of comparisons. You have permission to ask for help, to rest, to dream, to begin again. Whether you're 70, 80, or beyond, you are still becoming. And the story of you is still unfolding. So maybe today you pick up a paintbrush for the first time in years. Or you write that letter you've been meaning to send. Or you finally say yes to that community center dance night you've been avoiding because you were worried you'd feel out of place. Say yes anyway. Do the thing that brings you a spark, even if it's small, even if no one else sees it. Because when you say yes to life, life tends to say yes back. And if this video brought even a little light into your heart today, I'd be honored if you liked it, left a comment to share what resonated most with you, or shared it with someone you care about. You never know whose life you might touch just by passing this message along. And if you'd like to keep walking this path with us, talking about life after 60 in a way that's real, uplifting, and full of heart, I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel. We're building a community here, one that sees each other, one that remembers how valuable we still are. This isn't the end of your story. It's a new page, and it's one worth turning. So here's to you, to the strength in your softness, to the wisdom in your years, to the joy that still belongs to you, no matter what your mind sometimes says. Here's to living your best life at any age. Because the truth is, the best is never behind us. It's always waiting for us to notice it again. And I hope today, in some small way, you just did. Take care, my friend. I'm so glad we're on this journey together.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It truly means a lot. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with a friend or loved one who might benefit. And leave a comment below. We love hearing your thoughts and experiences. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest tips and uplifting advice for living your best life at any age. Now, if you're ready for more wisdom and encouragement, just click the video that's on your screen right now. It's packed with even more insights made just for you. Take care, stay positive, and we'll see you in the next one.